We thank you for staying with us. Now, the NCAA has garnered a lot of the basketball focus this past month, but the NBA marched on as well.
Of course, locally, the Rockets continue to fight for their playoff survival. You know, there are only 16 regular season games left. Mm-hmm. The abysmal march for the Rockets, who have gone 6-8, and that makes them 27-23 against the league, has not been the best months for them. That's to say the least. Now, holding on to the 8th spot in the Western Conference, it's going to be tough. The Nuggets and the Suns are breathing down their neck. Of course, a timely victory last night at home against the Kings, 113-106, should sort of remedy the situation. But
yeah, can the Rockets hold on to the 8th playoff spot? Now, with more on this, let's turn it over to Lemont, who's standing by for his one-on-one segment with returning guest Craig Shelton.
Thanks, gentlemen, and welcome back. The 2012 NCAA Final Four is now set for New Orleans, Louisiana this weekend, with the men's champion soon to be crowned. Today I have in the studio to discuss the NCAA tournament and other sports topics is KCOH radio personality and returning guest Craig Shelton. Craig, welcome back.
Thank you, Lemont. Glad to be back with you, man.
How you doing today? You all right?
Doing fantastic. Ready to talk a little sports with you.
Good to have you here, man, once again. And before we preview the Final Four for this weekend, let's recap the Baylor versus Kentucky game this past weekend. In your opinion, Craig, what happened to the Bears' offense versus the Wildcats?
Well, Kentucky happened to the Baylor Bears. Look, props to Baylor on a fantastic season. And that it's good to see that program has come back from a pretty bad situation if we go back in history with Baylor basketball. But listen, a couple things. You got the best player in college basketball, and when the best player in college basketball happens to be a big, centered in the middle of the floor, with the type of defensive intensity that team applies collectively, you cannot allow yourself to be down 42-22 at halftime. Ironically, the game started off good for Baylor. Mm-hmm. You saw AC make the hard hit on Davis, knocking him around a little bit. Then Baylor goes out on an 8-0 run. Next thing you know, Calipari has a call timeout, and you're thinking, okay, this is going to be okay for Baylor. Mm-hmm. Not so much. You can't be down by 20 to a team like Kentucky, and with that defense, the way they can extend that defense out on the perimeter, and the way they can just allow nothing to go on positive for you at the basket. So Kentucky basketball happened to Baylor.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. Yeah. And give credit to John Calipari, the head coach for the Kentucky Wildcats. Mm-hmm. He's been labeled as a program, as one-and-done program, and he's always reset his guys. It doesn't matter who's filling in. He has Davis and company. Those guys are outstanding freshmen. But, he has inherited that reputation as a one-and-done program, and he's got his program back-to-back to the Final Four. You got to give him kudos for that.
Definitely.
All right, moving towards the Final Four this weekend. Which team do you feel have the upper hand going into this weekend? And will Louisville finally upset Kentucky?
Well, you got a matchup there that's historic in regards to having the second best job in that part of the country, Pitino at Louisville. Mm-hmm. I like Ohio State quite a bit because I just think that when you got a guy that's so good around the basket like Jerry Sullinger, and you've got good compliments to what he does around him on the perimeter, but it's just so hard to go against Kentucky with this being a team, even though this is a team that's starting 4 freshmen and a team that's just full of freshmen and sophomores, but they've got a certain amount of poise that you see in a team full of seniors. But if there was one guy, the Bill Belichick of college basketball with 6 days to prepare, Rick Pitino, if he had a little bit more offense, I would be comfortable maybe picking them to upset Kentucky. I just don't think Louisville has enough offense to upset Kentucky, and I pick Kentucky to win the entire tournament.
Well, outside of Kentucky, I really like Kansas. I mean, I'm a big Thomas Robertson guy. I like his body of work. I like how the fact he overcame adversity throughout his life with his mom's situation. But another guy stepped up for Kansas that I was impressed with over my North Carolina Tar Heels. That was Tayshawn Taylor.
Yes.
His ability to get into the paint, his quickness. I was very impressed with Kansas' overall team effort against the Tar Heels this past weekend. outside Kentucky, I'm going to go with Kansas. I really like Kansas to make it to the finals. And if they hang in there with Kentucky, they can pull it out.
Well, next to Tom Izzo, I would say Bill Self is probably one of the top 3 coaches I trust.
All right, sticking with basketball, or staying with basketball, but going to the NBA, the Rockets last night pulled out a tough one over the Kings in overtime, but suffered more loss from the injury standpoint. Now they're in the playoff hunt. I want to get your thoughts on, see if, where will they finish in the playoff hunt, as well as, when will their starters return, Kevin Martin or possibly Kyle Lowry?
Yeah, I think the key for the Rockets going forward, and it was a great win last night, and it'll be interesting to see what they do with Dallas tonight, I believe it is. But it's about health right now with this team. Obviously, the situation with Kyle Lowry is becoming a little bit eerie. Kind of wondering what's going on there. Kevin Martin, if he win or if he comes back, I think it's more about what's upstairs, and that's really hard to figure out with any guy that's being paid millions of dollars to play a game. If he's still upset, or if he ever was upset about the near trade earlier in the season, by God, son, let it go. I don't know what to say about the Rockets in that regard. I'm one of those guys that would like to see the Rockets tank it and get a high draft pick, I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
But I think the Rockets, when it's all said and done, will likely find themselves just good enough to be at the bottom of that, playoff run, somewhere between 6 and 8 seed in the West, which is just good enough to get them in the round and get beat and have a bad draft pick.
All right, well, I'm going to disagree with you. I hope the Rockets make the playoffs so that I can be able to cover them from a playoff standpoint. But that's some good stuff there. It's time to go to the hot seat, Craig. And,
Let's do it.
Tim Tebow, he's taking over now in New York. He's now the most recognized backup quarterback. So when will the Jets finally move him to the starting position?
Man, PR-wise, he's already in the starting position. It just won't seem to go away. And that's because of guys like us sitting here today talking about somebody that can't play the quarterback position very well. I believe he's a good football player. I can't answer that question when he's going to be moved into the starting position. I think it's obvious Sanchez has struggled last year. We can state the obvious there. But the guy has won some games for you in the playoffs. He's not a he's not Peyton Manning. He's not Tom Brady in the pocket. But, Mark Sanchez kind of has his own sort of it factor. If he can get it rolling this year, he'll be the quarterback. If not, we'll see Tebowism do his thing in New York.
Well, to take one of the words that Tebow said quite often yesterday is, I'm excited to see him. I'm excited to see him in New York. Yeah. Craig, again, tell the viewers where they can hear your radio show as well as follow you on your blog site information. Yeah,
definitely. You can hear my radio show on KCOH Radio, 1430 a.m., and that's on Sundays 5 to 6. On Tuesdays, I co-host with Ralph Cooper on KCOH 5 to 6 on Sports Rap. And you can get the blog at HoustonMediaWatch.com.
You got a great article on there. I'm not going to give it away, but it's a great article on there about a local media personality that everyone needs to check out. So, Greg, thank you again for coming in, and until next time.
Appreciate it.
All right. Well, that will conclude this week's segment. Until next time, back to you guys.
Thanks, Lemont. Always good to see you, Craig. Now it's time for another break. When we return, Bogdan and I will talk some Dynamo soccer. Then we go between the lines with Mr. Godley. Don't touch that dial.